about this whole thing that I get pulled over within the first 20 minutes of driving for having my high beams on. And then 5 minutes later, I get pulled over again by the same cop for still having my high beams on. And it gives me this little pamphlet the second time called How the Police Can Help You. But now, actually, I feel kind of relieved, because when you're nervous, you're waiting for something bad to happen, for things to go off the rails, and they already have. So I'm home free. 9 at night, I finally pull up to Esther's house, this little place on top of a hill in the suburbs, and I open the door, and suddenly she's there, and her daughter, the youngest of Bakivita's 4 daughters, Andrea, just a couple of years older than me, and they're scooping up cats, and they're offering me slippers, and did I have anything to eat, and they take me to this room, which is another one of his daughter's bedrooms, and I'm looking around the house, and it's beautiful, and it's also a total mess. And I realized that when Esther said that she had 25 boxes of papers, what she meant was I have some amount of stuff in and around my home. There's things piled on the piano, behind the couch, in plastic tubs next to the washer dryer. Cats are lying down on top of them whenever she's not looking. He's got CDs in a wicker basket in the kitchen, posters from his conferences on the walls, and he's there in nearly every family photo sprinkled among them, and he looks just like a mad scientist, right? Big, white Einstein hair, the kind of stooped stature that us academics get when we spend too much time reading, and this mischievous, toothy grin. And the next day, I wake up and start going through all of it. So, what was there? I start with the books by him and not by him, English, French, German, Spanish, titles like Theoretical Considerations in Brain Injury Rehabilitation and Non-Synaptic Diffusion Neurotransmission, whatever that means. And sprinkled among them are scientific articles themselves, no alphabetical or chronological order, of course, sometimes 10 to 15 copies of the same one, just kind of shoved into different places. There's all kinds of general office miscellanea, right, like notes on legal pad and typed letters from World War II era scientists who wanted to tell Bakivita they liked what he was doing. And there's all kinds of technology. I mean, there's Betamax and VHS tapes, which I have to confess I never watched because I didn't know how or where to go to do that. But she did also have microcassette players from the 80s that he used to talk into while he went jogging every morning. And I spent a couple hours trying to get them to work again, and all I could get was that kind of little chipmunk voice, unfortunately. But I could still hear his voice, and he's practicing for his conference proceedings, or he's singing a song he's written about how beautiful his wife Esther is. And Esther also brings me these flash drives and says, oh, maybe these are useful. And they turn out to have the entire contents of his computer, including every email he's ever sent or received. And of course, she gives me his memoirs, half written, maybe 36 chapters. A chapter could be anything from 3 sentences to 10 pages. And they vary widely in what they cover. I mean, there's stuff about his father growing up in Catalan in Spain, about his own childhood in the 1940s in the Bronx, about hitchhiking across America when he was 17, medical school in Mexico, volunteering in rural villages where people had guns to his head, and then years of research in California and Europe, and then eventually Wisconsin, fighting with people to try to get his ideas recognized. And, I try to go through all these things. Sometimes I go out to meet other people that he used to work with. I go to one of his patients' houses for tea, and she cries in front of me. I meet up with some of his colleagues, and one of them drags me into his office for 4 hours to explain in a very thick Russian accent exactly what he thinks they did wrong. I even get to try on the electric lollipop tongue thing, which is exactly as it's been described. I'm strapped in, my eyes closed, the technician is rolling things in front of my face, and I can feel kind of this sensation, sharp but not unpleasant, like champagne or Pop Rocks, And every day I go back through his things, sorting them into different piles, covering them with a tarp at night so the cats don't pee on it, trying to take notes. It takes me almost 2 weeks to go through everything. And then on one of my last nights, Andrea, the daughter, She invited to take me out in the town to show me downtown Madison. She used to go to college at the university, so she knows all the good spots. We go to 3 or maybe 4 bars. It's hard to remember. And I'm loosening up. It's a great town. I'm making dumb jokes. I'm knocking back beers. It's the first time in days that I've actually been able to do something other than think about my thesis work. But Andrea just wants to talk about her dad. She's telling me about how he used to play the piano for her when she was a little girl coming home. And then later, when he first was suddenly diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, signed up for this strange new treatment that involved exaggerated doses of chemo, and used to come home with the electrodes still on his head and the blood spots around him. And then later, when he couldn't even walk and still wanted to go for his morning jog, she would wheel him around the block in his wheelchair. And I'm trying to take notes on my iPhone whenever she goes to the bathroom, so I can try to remember this stuff, and suddenly I stop, like, what am I doing? I mean, this has gone way beyond anything that I would ever need to write down and what I'm working on. Now suddenly this is a man whose life belongs to me. I mean, when I first started doing this work, I wouldn't refer to him as anything but Dr. Bakirita, to be respectful, like my parents had taught me. And then by the end, I'm calling his siblings on the phone, and I'm referring to him as Paul. I actually dreamed about him. And as I'm working on it, it just becomes stranger and stranger to me that not only does Paul Bakirita's life kind of reside with me, but that he has no idea who I am and won't ever know. And I'm thinking about if he was alive and could go through all my things, as he probably has the right to do at this point. I mean, the blogs I had when I was 15, the poetry I wrote in high school, the G-chats with my friends, my writing, which I consider so precious and I idealize. Would he know me from that? And I have to think that I feel like I know him. And maybe all that a person is the things that they make and what gets left behind and remembered. Or at least I have to hope that that's enough. Thank you.